Hi, Emily.
Hello, you're right.
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm good, thank you. Good.
And thanks for taking part in the Short Focus Film Festival Q&A discussions today.
Of
Um,
course.
of course, we really appreciate your film as well. It's a lovely story. For those who maybe haven't seen it, could you just explain briefly what your film is about?
Sure. It's about a girl named Alex who kind of continuously, or okay, maybe not continuously, but right at the beginning, she has a dream where she is basically kisses her best friend, and her best friend happens to be a girl, and she has no clue um, what that means. And it's basically a story about her journey through discovering what it means, and what it means for her and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel as though your film speaks to this generation of young adults, a much more liberal generation, I think, and is concerned with personal relationships rather than public perception. Do you
Mm.
think that's a fair assessment of your film?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely wanted this to feel quite personal, and I didn't want the characters to need validation from other people, if that makes sense. So I'm not quite sure if that's along the lines of
Yeah.
what you just said, but yeah, I yeah, I wanted it to kind of be totally about her, and it didn't matter what other people thought. And it was about her relationship with her friend, and they'd been friends for so long that she felt like she could trust her eventually. Um, and yeah, I think she was more worried about herself. I don't think she cared so much about what other people would think once she figured herself out, if that made sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean that definitely does come across. I mean, it does feel like a very personal statement too. Why was the story important for you to tell?
Yeah, that's always a really tough question to answer because to start with, I thought it was my personal story. And then the more I watched the film, the more I like kind of, felt the story. I kind of now think that it's not so much my story. I mean, yes, one of my first partners in my life was my best friend, back in high school. And so like those little things, it was like real in a sense. But the deeper root, I think, is I just felt like it needed to be said, if that makes sense. I do feel like a lot of coming out films are about what other people are going to think of me. Can I do this, etc. Whereas this, I felt more like it's okay if I am. I just need to figure out if I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I hope that came out a bit. I don't know.
It
Fingers crossed.
definitely does. I mean, it's a very kind of warm and tender story just about, two people essentially, trying to find
Mm,
themselves and find each other
mm.
in a very kind of honest way. Um, were there any sort of particular influences for you whilst making this film?
Yeah, I think actually when I was writing the film, I was watching the show called Atypical, and I really liked Izzy and oh my God, people are gonna kill me, Casey's relationship kind of developing through that. Even though like in the show they were enemies to lovers, if that makes sense, it was very different in that aspect. But I loved the way that the writers and the directors and stuff brought out that emotion and that even the smallest like touches and things like that, like that was really, I really felt something from watching that. But I think that's about it, really. I mean, the story itself just came from my brain, but I mean, it's a story that I feel a lot of people have told before, but maybe not in this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That's one I'll have to add to my list. I haven't seen
Sure.
before, so thank you for
Oh,
the
okay.
pointer. Um,
Sure.
where did filmmaking start for you? Is it something that you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, my goodness. Okay, when I say filmmaking, so literally as early as I could write, I was writing stories, and then the stories would turn into scripts because I was watching a lot of TV and stuff, and I would always kind of write out like fake episodes or scenes, of a show that I watched. So my mind was constantly going, and I think it was like trying to get away from real life a bit, so I would write to kind of um yeah, I don't know, kind of help, if that makes sense. But then, you know, as soon as I realized I could do it, you know, that people could make it a job, or like you could do it even as a hobby, immediately I went into it. So like I grew up in the States. In the States, it's quite hard to get into, well, personally for me, I felt like it was really difficult to get into what I wanted to get into, which was film, because you have to do the weird steps of like middle school, high school, college, you know, and then maybe that's where you can like learn stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like I was really lucky because I never graduated high school. I moved straight to England.
Right.
And when I came to England, I went straight into media at college. And that was like my first kind of step into, yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
But I knew from such a young age that I wanted to go into that kind of film world or TV world. But I do want to say that actually as a job, I'm more of an editor. So I am still in that film world, but filmmaking was kind of a new thing from like a few years ago. I say filmmaking, I mean writing and directing, because I think everybody on the team is a filmmaker, you know, because you're making the film or you're making the show. So I don't really want to say filmmaking because, you know,
I mean, I quite like the idea of you, you know, as a sort of kid, you know, just kind of writing stuff out and sort of trying to, you know, just get ideas out, really. But
I know, I still have the folder here. It's like this big of like, because I grew up in France, so I've got a lot of scripts in French and, you know, and then finally I went into America, you know, English. And it was like, I still have all that, which is like crazy.
That's really fascinating. I mean, was there a moment maybe or something in particular that urged you to kind of give that a try? Was there some like a moment of inspiration, or did it just sort of happen?
Yeah. Filmmaking in general, I've always wanted, like, my aim with the films that I make is to make positive lesbian content, like films, because I feel like we have them. I just feel like we don't have enough of them. Like, I feel like there's always a tragedy or, you know, something bad that happens in the stories. So me and a friend just decided one year, you know, we were like, you know what, we've got, you know, ideas in our head, let's just try and make something. And we made our first film and that did really well. And then, as I was saying, I was watching Atypical and something just like bubbled inside of me. And I was like, whoa, I really feel something, like I could write something from this moment. And not from me watching Atypical, but like in my head from the ideas I had. And then, and then I just went into writing this one, and that's it. I can't remember your question. I'm just talking now.
You've answered it, but
okay, cool.
What do you hope that people will take from this film? What do you
I mean, they're gonna go into it thinking, oh, another coming out story, oh, another, you know, story about a young girl, you know, not my age, whatever. But I feel like I really hope that by the end of it, if they stick through it, that they will take away that it's okay to be who you are, but it is your journey and you need to take the time to figure yourself out. It doesn't matter what other people think. The people around you will love you no matter what. And if they don't, look at that, you've got someone else there, you know. It's like, it's not the end of the world in a sense. And I don't want to say that like disrespectfully, because I know a lot of people go through a lot of hard times and stuff coming out. But and also I'm hoping that people don't see the age, because I feel like, you know, a story like this, it can happen at any age. That's kind of why I based it in a school, because I feel like a lot of people come out at a young age, but I feel like by the end of the film, if you remove the location, the story itself will speak to people of all ages, if that makes sense, if they're in that like same space or same experience, if that makes sense.
And I think it does. Obviously the film has a very sort of specific locality, but I think it, you know, it does speak universally to, you know, the society that we live in and are familiar with. So I mean, I think that the film has an overwhelmingly positive message and has a very kind of joyous vibrance about it, you know, despite the kind of dramas and the tensions that the characters go through. I think overall, you know, the film is extremely, you know, well-meaning and its heart is in the right place. So you've done a fantastic job. What can we expect from you next?
People always ask me that. You know what, I have no clue. You know, when I was doing a few Q&As like months ago, I was like, oh yeah, I'm writing this and I'm writing that and all this stuff. That's died down. You know, my brain, I feel like I'm struggling at the moment to get my ideas on paper, but I'm hoping to, you know, to have another short film like soon, you know.
Yeah.
But the story is still, I'm still brewing on the story. I don't know yet exactly
Okay.
what I want to write.
So
But yeah,
a bit of
hopefully
downtime
another one soon.
at the
Yeah,
moment,
exactly.
professionally at least.
Yeah.
But, you know, good to know that, you know, there are ideas still bubbling away, and obviously, you know, we hope
Yeah.
to see more from you. Emily, thank you so much for joining me today and speaking
Sure.
with us so openly about your lovely film.
Sure.
And you know, thanks. You know, keep in touch with us and let us know what you are working on next, of course. And we look
Will
forward
do.
to screening your film online on the 18th to the 26th of September. Thank you so
Great.
much for joining me today. You take care.
Great.
Enjoy the rest of your
Thank
day.
you. Thanks a
Bye.
lot. Bye. 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 Bye.